Hello and welcome to the SAT videos. Now, in the last few videos we learned about that expressions like 2x plus 4 is equal to 8 or x square plus 3x minus 10 is equal to 0 are known as equations. Now, these are known as equations because we are weighting them to something, but the same expressions would be known as inequalities if we replace the equal to sign with a more than or a less than or a more than equal to or a less than equal to sign. So, an inequality looks like 2x plus 4 is more than 8 or x square plus 3x is more than equal to 10. So that's where we call them as inequalities. Now, inequalities is an important topic because here students make some silly mistakes. So now let's look at a few rules about the inequality equations. The first rule is, for example, if we have an equation which says 2x plus 4 equals 8, we can move the constants around without changing the inequality sign, but by changing the sign with the constant. So the constant here had a plus sign, but when we moved it to the other side, it becomes a negative sign. So this is what you have to keep in mind, that in an inequality we can move the equations around. We just keep in mind that the sign of the inequality should remain the same. Similarly, let's say if we have an equation which tells us 2x is more than 4 and we add or subtract a same number or a same constant value on both the sides, the sign does not change. We can even subtract the same value and the sign would still remain the same. So one thing that you have to keep in mind here is whether when you add or subtract, the things remain the same, it doesn't change. Now let's look at the third rule. The third rule says if we have an equation which is like 2x plus 4 is more than 8, then we can multiply both the sides with a constant positive value. So let's say in this case, if I multiply both the sides with a 3, now my equation changes to 6x plus 12 is more than 24. So the inequality sign still remains the same. And we can even divide everything by the same number. For example, let's say if I divide both the sides by a 2, now my equation changes to x plus 2 is more than 4, but the inequality sign still remains constant. But now comes the important rule. This important rule is if we have an equation which says 2x is more than 4 and we multiply both the sides by a negative value, then the sign of the inequality would get reversed. So this is what you have to be very careful about. So here the equation finally becomes a minus 6x is less than minus 12. Now as we can see a negative sign on both the sides, if we cancel off both these negatives, the sign again gets reversed. And if we change this, you would again get the same equation as the original. So here, this is what you have to be very careful about. Now, let's for example look at an example as to how to solve an inequality question. So, for example, let's say we have a question which is 6x minus 4 is less than an 8x plus 6. So we have the variables on both the sides. So what should we do is keep the variables on one side and keep the constants on the other. So let's say we write the equation as 6x minus 8x, taking this 8 this side and moving this 4 to the right hand side, which becomes a 6 plus 4. So now the equation is minus 2x is less than a 10. Now we need to find out the value for x. So now this becomes an x and this minus 2 goes to the right hand side and divides the 10. Now because we are dealing with a negative number, the inequality sign changes, so the final answer becomes x is more than a minus 5. So I hope every one of you are clear with the examples here. So this is what is inequalities all about. So you have to be very careful about the negative sign. So whenever you see a negative sign, it just means being careful.